Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess the first thing that occurred to me, and I was in your audit on what happened after Katrina, and I was mad for about 3 weeks afterwards, particularly one of your closing comments. I said, of all these different people, you outlined there's tens of thousands of people that have defrauded the government and my taxpayers. I said, what's going to happen to them? And you said, candidly, you really want to know? I said, yeah. You said, nothing. And in this situation, I assume that what happens is you've got somebody over in Department of Justice that has prosecutors. The prosecutors are going after people that are shopping cocaine and doing all these other sort of high-tech, more spectacular things. And the guys that are just ripping off the taxpayer on a daily basis, making an honest living, ripping off taxpayers, are probably going to be ignored just the same as they were at Katrina. So I guess my first question is, does that suggest that you would almost put some law enforcement people in the SBA or something so that you have at least a dedicated resource of people that are going out? Because a lot of things, if you let all these people know that you lie, you get busted. That's going to clean up an awful lot of stuff right there. I mean, I've always thought we should do that on voter fraud. Nobody ever gets prosecuted for that, and it gets worse and worse, or at least it stays bad. Is that something? That's my first question. Let me start with that.
Well, certainly investigators and forensic auditors and things like that would be best adapted to this type of an environment. And it is interesting, the hearings on Katrina, and that is even a best case scenario, because they set up the Katrina Fraud Task Force, you may be aware. We referred 22,000 cases to them of potential fraud, and that's what we identified. And as you said, it's probably tens of thousands.
Those are just
more.
the dumb people that photocopied their driver's license living in Minnesota saying they got hit by Katrina. I mean, these weren't really bright criminals exactly. Yeah.
And out of those 22,000, we see 50 or 60 of them have been indicted. So that's not a high percentage, and that's kind of what I predicted to you what would probably happen. So here, though, I do think it's important that there are consequences to people who do lie about this program and who take away business from legitimate Hubzone companies. And so we would certainly support SBA and anything this committee can do to help them, working with U.S. attorneys, for example, on making some examples of people. Because I would predict if you make examples of people and you publicize it, you'll have a lot of people coming forth during an amnesty program that are going to decertify themselves before they get a chance to lose all their other government business.
From a structural point of view, would it just mess everything up to have a couple of prosecutor types attached specifically to the program like this? Because maybe I don't understand the structure of the administration, but do you have anybody that you can go to, Ms. Carenza, where they're going to work on your cases for you and make sure people get busted, or are you at the mercy of the Justice Department?
Congressman Akin, we have a couple of avenues that we have addressed already. One is working closely with the IG. They have the appropriate skill sets to support us, and we can partner in that aspect. Secondly,
do you have the resources there, though, to go after some of these people?
Yes, I believe, as you stated earlier, that if we make an example of one or two or follow through with the suspension.
I understand that, but can you get the people to get on these things and start dealing with it or not? Do you have the power in your position, or do you know yet?
Yes, I have the authority. I have already deployed not only IG support, but also the district directors, and they are knowledgeable of the need to do more and things better on the site visits and the recertification process. So
you do think you have the resources to do that?
Oh, yes.
To make sure people, when somebody breaks the law, you can both criminally prosecute them and debar them from government contracts?
Yes, we have an attorney who's actually our suspension and debarment officer.
Okay. Now let me just cross-examine. Then, what's your sense, Mr. Kurtz? Does she have the resources to go after some of these people? Do you think, or not? Because you've been around longer than she has.
Well, I don't know. I haven't looked at her human capital, but I expect she doesn't necessarily have the right people. She may have people, but they may not be the right people. I don't know. You know, I think the other issue of actually prosecuting in something is not an easy issue. If you look at suspension and debarment in the government, typically people don't get suspended and debarred unless they are proven to be guilty of a crime. But the law says you can actually suspend or potentially debar without having to prove someone is criminally responsible. So if they can prove some of these cases that people are in the program inappropriately, they can still potentially suspend and debar without going through the prosecution, I believe.
I guess the other question I have, I get a couple of them, and that is, my understanding is working in the administration is it's even more frustrating than being in Congress. And our job's like watching glacier races many days. But do you, because of all of the different union things with government employees, if you've got a bunch of incompetent people that are currently working for you, can you get rid of them and move people around, or does it take you a year and a half to build a case to get rid of somebody who's basically some toad that's doing nothing?
I'll address that from a operator's perspective, because I have 30 years as an operation working with thousands of employees and recognizing many times that you didn't have top performers. You have an A team, B team, C team, but you look at their strengths, their capacity. What we've done in the agency, because we have employees with limited capacity or lack of focus, or perhaps not the skill sets, we have trained in the past 2 years over 1,500 employees to look at the quality controls, quality improvements. We look at metrics, we look at employee relations, and we also look at the importance of auditing. I would like to...
I agree with you, the idea of building a team. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Time is expired. Mr. Schuler.
Thank you, Madam